Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast or media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Luckyeevee, Mathmachine, The Shark, Jordan, and our special guest today is Python. Today is our 80th episode, and we're discussing the 1997 movie Future War. So, let's get things started.
Alright. We have to go
Yeah, this...
Future.
Yep. Unfortunately, everything is not chrome in this movie, nor is there Spongetron and Patron, although they would have made things way better.
Though there are a lot of cardboard boxes, so to anyone with a cardboard allergy, you've been warned.
Yes, but Future War is a movie that had a really insane backstory behind it. It started production in 1994, and it wasn't completed until 1997 because it kept running out of budget multiple times. This is one of those B movies that tried to do way too much than it could afford. And to make things worse, the original director of the movie was actually fired because his draft was just 45 minutes of people sitting and talking with maybe like one or two dinosaur scenes, and that's it. So basically, this movie is a stitched together mess of a film. So
yeah,
it's really going to be
but what we got,
thankfully,
is a little bit more of an upgrade, but not by much.
It's not 45 minutes of people talking, but there is a lot of talking and a lot of bad effects. But the movie stars, for lack of a better term, David Bernhardt, who's actually best known for being a stuntman. He was in movies like Matrix Reloaded and John Wick, and some of the Bloodsport movies and Trauma stuff. Basically, things that people have seen him in. And this was, I believe, his only attempt at a starring role, and after seeing it, you can kind of understand why. The movie begins with a sequence that we later see in its entirety in the film later on, taken completely out of context. It shows a trio of people making their way through a pipe-filled maze while finding some water on the ground.
Super Mario.
Yep.
It is.
I will say this. This and the Mario movie, I would probably choose the Mario movie over this because the Mario movie at least has interesting things happen in it.
Yeah, and it also has freaking Key.
Yep, it has Yoshi and it has a punk rocker Toad in it too. Let's not forget that.
Yep.
And most importantly, the Mario movie had budget.
That too.
Yep.
But the woman of the trio mentions that she said a fire fell from the sky and that the man who arrived changed her life. She mentions that it also brought dinosaur-like creatures and their masters, mentioning that hell on earth occurred. The pair round a corner to see two dinosaurs roaring at each other as they pick something off of the ground. Now, all of the dinosaurs in this movie are T-Rexes of what are supposed to be various sizes. Some are supposed to be giants, others are supposed to be the size of a small dog, but all of them are T-Rexes. These ones are made to appear huge due to forced perspective, and I will give them this. This is not the worst effect of the movie because sometimes they look like animatronics. Other times, we will get to that, what some of the other ones look like.
We will.
It'll be interesting. But one of the dinosaurs notices that as the three run away, and it's here where something that happened that I could not stop thinking about for the entirety of the movie. The dinosaurs' roar that they use for all the dinosaurs is the exact same roar they use for Bowser for Super Smash Bros. Melee.
And that's not the only recognizable sound effect because whenever a door is open in here, it sounds exactly like when SpongeBob opens the door to his pineapple.
Exactly, and that's also for wooden doors too, not just like metal doors or like things like that. Wooden doors creak like they're made out of metal. The sound
what if everything is made of metal? What if everything's made of chrome, actually? You don't know. You don't know.
But the group shoot at the dinosaur, killing it as another one of them roars. The three almost make it out, but one of them is attacked by the dinosaur and screams, leading us to the opening credits. And it's here where the fun really begins because the opening credits of this movie is spaced out to the point where it lasts for 5 minutes. It's like the credit happens, then it's like, we get footage, and then another 5 minutes pass, and then it's another credit. I think they could have done like Spaceballs and stretched it out for the entirety of the movie, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, just had to remind me of that.
I'm pretty sure the footage is taken from somewhere else because
they
there's no
could not
way they
afford-
could have done it on their own.
They could not have afforded a spaceship, like even like a toy spaceship. They could not have afforded that at all. But in between the credits, we see a sequence of a spaceship traveling through the stars before a man aboard the spaceship is killed. Another one flees into an escape pod and makes his way off the ship. We then get to see a text crawl that tells us that a group of cyborgs in the future abduct people and dinosaurs to be used as their slaves and their trackers, respectively. These slaves claim that they are escaping to heaven, which is actually Earth. So apparently this is Ooh, Heaven is a Place on Earth, the motion picture.
Or at the very least, this has basically become a Christian film. More on the
yeah, we're going to get to that in a little bit. But it's here where with the director's credit, I actually looked it up. He is very well known for his special effects. He worked as an animator on the 80s version of The Blob. He worked on the Reanimator movies and the Carnosaur franchise, the latter of which is actually going to come into play in a little while. And the music in this movie, it sounds like the Terminator theme song, just in a higher tempo. It really does. It's the dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
And speaking of Terminator...
Probably West.
Yep. And speaking of Terminator...
Yep. The main character actually does not have a name, but the script calls him the Runaway, so that's what I put in my notes to call him. But after the credits...
Little Runaway.
If only they played that song in the movie.
If only.
After the credits, we cut to a beach where we see the Runaway swimming to shore. This is followed by another figure standing in the water. And we get a POV shot from the cyborg that is a direct ripoff of the Terminator's vision from like T1 and T2. You know, it really, really feels like they were just like, let's knock off Terminator because Terminator is popular. Oh, let's do Jurassic Park because Jurassic Park is popular. You know, exactly. The dinosaur...
All in the of 2 shoestrings and a handshake.
Exactly. But the cyborg approaches a man sleeping on the beach and kills him off screen. The Runaway tries to escape while the cyborg uses his dinosaur tracker to find him. And it's here where we get something that really actually made me laugh, probably unintentionally, but if so, it was cute. The dinosaur looks like it's on a leash. So it's about the size of a small dog, which is a really hilarious image to me. That you have like this cyborg had to make a leash for the dog and he's walking it like, you know. It's really something that it seems so stupid, you know, when you think about it, you know. And the explanation we get for why the cyborgs needed humans and dinosaurs in the first place, it's something, but we'll get to it. But the dinosaur...
And one thing that's that they do constantly every time there's a cyborg is they do that vert kind of robotic sound effect just to really remind people, hey, these aren't people, they're metallic. Because the sound designer worked on Ed, Nettie, I guess, and decided to put a sound effect every 2 seconds.
If only we got If only we got that. That would have made the whole movie worth it. If like I want to see an edit of this movie where every single like karate kick and punch has that sound effect played over it.
Yeah, like absolutely.
Oh god. Nice.
X scene, but with Ed and Nettie sound effects.
Yep.
Oh god, yeah. But anyway, the cyborg then bumps into a homeless man and screams of her running off. The dinosaur tracker suddenly appears and attacks the homeless man, killing him by ripping his throat out. And the dinosaur then corners the Runaway. And it's here where we get to see the Runaway fight the dinosaur with his fists, and he wins. Because this is some shots, I believe it is like a rudimentary puppet. It's not an impressive one, but it's a puppet. Some shots when it's attacking, it looks like a toy. It really looks like one of those cheap, you know, dinosaur toys every kid had that was like, you know, no one knew who owned it or who originally made it, but it really looks like those rubber dinosaur toys. That's the kind of budget we're dealing with, people. And this isn't even the worst effect of the movie, so stay tuned. But
last week's movie was a B movie, and it was pretty decent for a B movie. So this week's movie is making up for that.
This is not a B movie. This is a Z movie. This is a very, very bad movie. But the dinosaur's corpse then explodes for seemingly no apparent reason. The runaway then escapes to an area where workers are unloading boxes, followed by the cyborg. The cyborg kills one of the workers as we get a good look at his face. And this cyborg looks completely different from the other cyborg we see later on. This one has pale white skin and sunken eyes, which could be a cool look, but it comes out seeming silly, especially because he has like a big mustache and like a beard, and it's like, you know, I guess what they're trying to do was, oh, hey, the Borg from Star Trek are cool, let's make him look like that. But then they realize, oh, right, we don't have the budget to actually make him look like a robot, although they do with the other one, which, again, we'll get to that later.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, they look a little cybernetic, but budget was definitely not part of this movie's agenda.
Exactly. But the runaway hides in a pile of garbage as the cyborg looks for him. Then they run through a maze of cardboard boxes, which the reason why there's so many cardboard boxes is because, again, they ran out of money. They could not afford set decoration. They literally had to just stack a bunch of cardboard boxes and we're done.
Yep, it basically reminds me of that one movie where one guy made an entire cardboard box maze or labyrinth or whatever, and they're just trying to get through it. Like this honestly kind of feels like either a prequel or a sequel to that. Take your pick.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh god, yeah.
Every scene except for the outside ones were filmed in the very same warehouse. Like there's no way they could have filmed in another place.
Dude.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like, they had access to this warehouse and they reuse it a lot. You are going to see this warehouse set being redressed over and over and over again. But what happens is the cyborg finds the runaway and they begin fighting with each other. And one thing to give the movie credit where credit is due, they cast people that were legitimate martial artists, because the Daniel Bernhardt definitely was actually a trained martial artist, and the fight choreography, when you can see it, is actually legitimately impressive. Like this guy knows his stuff, It really sucks that this had to be the movie that he got a showcase of, because he deserved so much better, because he is talented. You definitely can tell if he's in movies, again, like John Wick, you can tell this guy has some skill. But what happens is the two of them fight again, but the cyborg crashes through some cardboard boxes, which clearly look empty, but they play heavy crashing sounds over it to make it sound like, oh no, they're heavy and they're filled with things. But the way they fall, it's empty. Like the way they fall on top of the cyborg. I think at one point you guys see one of the flaps open up and you can see nothing's in one of them. But
my
the
favorite
runaway
part about that fight is that every time they make contact, they use that standard stock pow sound effect.
Oh,
even
yeah.
when they kick.
Sure. Yeah, that is true. That is true. But we then also get another weird editing error, because basically the two are fighting outside and the cyborg pushes the runaway. The next cut has them inside of the warehouse. There's nothing like a door or pushing them through the wall or something like that. It's just one scene they're outside. The next second they're literally inside the warehouse as they continue to fight with each other. But basically the fight scene has a pretty good ending, with the runaway performing a flying leap kick at the cyborg, which, to be fair, to give this movie all the credit where credit is due, this is better than Steven Seagal's films. Let's be real.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's more action.
I disagree. He made at least one good movie.
Oh yeah, which one was that?
Which one?
Under Siege.
Wasn't a fan. I thought it was kind of stupid. It was really held for Tommy Lee Jones and Gary Busey for me. Seagal was just bleh. But getting back to this, basically the cyborg flies backwards into the pile of boxes as this seemingly kills him, because we never see the cyborg again. The runaway tries to escape the warehouse but runs into a dinosaur eating some flesh, which I have no idea if it's supposed to be eating a worker or it's supposed to be eating the cyborg's human pieces, but if it was, that would be interesting. The runaway is cornered by the dinosaur but kills it by throwing something at it. It's very hard to tell what it is, because this movie does not have the best visual quality either. Some of it was clearly done on a camcorder, so I couldn't tell if it was like a knife or something, but he throws something sharp at the dinosaur and then kills it, and once again the dinosaur explodes. And again, some of the dinosaurs look decent. Like some of the close-ups I swear are taken from the movie Carnosaur. Because there's a part where you close up on the dinosaur and it looks more grayscaled and it's an upper shot. I swear that was taken from one of the dinosaurs from Carnosaur because that movie had way better effects than this. And again, we'll discuss that movie on the podcast in a little bit, and it is much better. But for now, we cut to Anne, who is a nun in training, driving as the runaway runs into the street and is hit by her car. She drives to her friend Fred's house and she tells him all about the injured man. And it's here where we get into the weird religious aspect of the movie, which is a lot more than you think, because what happened with this movie, because they had no funding, they had to go to a Catholic church who requested all of this. It probably was a local church, but part of me really wants to think that they had to go to the Vatican to get funding for it. Oh, Father, can you please give us some funding for us to do our cyborg and dinosaur movie? Go forth, my son.
We're about to make absolute garbage.
Go forth, my son. You know, I really like to imagine them waiting online with the script and all the footage they have, and they show it to the Pope, and they show it to Pope Jean Paul II, and he's watching it like, yeah, this is gonna be great.
And then later he's like,
"Or I have made shit."
Yeah, I know. That's what I said.
Yeah, but we then cut to a group of police officers, so they wonder what could have killed the homeless man, suggesting like it could be a bear or a mountain lion. They then see the exploded remains of the dinosaur tracker and are stunned. We then cut back, and again, there's going to be a lot of, and then we cut back, and then we cut back, because again, that's how this movie was edited. Mm-hmm. Fred and Anne talk about what happened and joke with each other as they see another man enter and offer them ice cream. This guy is not named, at least I couldn't find a name for him, but he looks exactly like Peter Griffin would in real life. Like, if you put a blue shirt on Peter and you took off his glasses, he would look like this man. Hey, Lois.
It has the hair and it even has the chin.
Yeah, he definitely does. It's like, hey, Lois, remember the time I was in Future War?
Oh, God.
Yeah. But we then cut to the runaway in a bedroom with the woman taking out all of his things and putting them in a bag for him. Anne mentions that she might not be cut out to be a nun and that she's having a crisis of fate. The woman arrives and says that she helped the runaway the best way she could. She hands them a collar that Fred jokes that the runaway is into bondage, and the woman leaves her nursing job. We never see her again, so it's probably some of the director's friends who said, oh, I can act. You know, it definitely feels like that. A lot of the actors in this are just like friends of the director or like some of the backers who are like, oh yeah, we can act. Because we're not getting quality performances in this movie, let's be real. But
yeah,
we get some backstory for Anne. It turns out she was a former drug dealer and prostitute who went clean and decided to help others. We then cut to the next day as the Peter Griffin lookalike mentions that he tried talking to the runaway, who was apparently mute. They go into the next room to see the runaway fiddling with a radio and listening to it out of curiosity. The other three arrive with food as the runaway eats the breakfast with his hands. He doesn't say anything. Fred asks him some questions, but the runaway is not listening. He's just busy playing with the radio. Fred and Peter, I'm just going to call him Peter for the sake of this thing, they wonder what's wrong with the runaway as Anne decides to talk to him herself. It feels like they wanted the runaway to be like Kyle from Terminator, but they completely missed the mark with him, you know? It feels like they wanted him to be, you know, like the shell-shocked survivor of a horrific future. But again, this guy really is not a good actor. He is not suited to play a lead role like this in a movie.
Allow me to give you a demonstration of the acting in this movie. Hello, how are you doing? Today is a good day.
Perfect. With that kind of acting skill, you could be in this movie.
Indeed.
But she tries to communicate with him, but he is completely unresponsive until she attempts to leave, which somehow, for some reason, causes the runaway to just jump at her and grab her neck. After a few moments of this, he takes her collar as she notes that he can't talk due to seemingly problems with his throat, then wonders if he can read or write. She writes the alphabet on a chalkboard as he tilts his head in confusion at this. She approaches a map and tries to point out various locations to find out where he's from, as he just makes various like groans and grunts as a form of speech.
For the time being, anyways.
Yep. The runaway gets frustrated and smashes a desk in two before heading back to the radio. We head back to night, where Max, a young boy, shows the runaway his tape recorder as the runaway is stunned at how noise is coming out of it. Anne is planning on leaving before the runaway just grabs at her. He tries to talk using broken sounds, and of course she can't understand him. He grabs a globe and a toy spaceship and explains his past to her that way, which this definitely shows that the spaceship footage from earlier was taken from another movie, because if they were to use a spaceship, it probably would have just been this toy. Like this waggy toy, multicolored spaceship. They would definitely have used that. But it turns out that a dinosaur is lurking outside of their house as Max notices it, pointing at it to the runaway. The dinosaur bursts in through the window as it attacks the Peter lookalike. Fred shoots at the dinosaur as the runaway grabs at Anne. And it's here we get one of many, 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 many plot holes. We're not going to go through all of them because this episode would be 5 hours long then. But what happens is, for some reason, the runaway can speak English. In stilted English, the runaway tells her that they have to escape as Anne wants to stay behind and help her friends.
Because Patrick came off screen and teach it in amazing 3 minutes in the kitchen and our son has taught him how to talk complete sentences.
Oh, God. Yeah, Patrick and his parents definitely would be more competent heroes in this movie. I will say that
Indeed.
much. But the runaway then talks to Anne as, to their credit, they actually point out how did he learn English so quickly. So at least they pointed out their plot hole.
Yep.
But then we get to one of the reasons why this movie is so messed up, because we hear narration that explains how it happened, as Anne mentions that she does not trust him. But while the narration is kicking in, we clearly see they are having a conversation. So it's like what it was they probably thought, oh no, they can't understand the conversation. We better put narration in this movie for whatever reason. We then cut to
if you listen closely, you can actually hear them still talking because they didn't take that sound out.
Yep,
that bad, people. But what happens next is we cut to the pair hiding on a train as they talk, with the runaway basically saying that he is a tool and that the cyborgs kidnapped humans for their hands because apparently the cyborgs are too lazy to work. Which is, when I heard that explanation, I had to pause the video for a few minutes and stand up, because that is the best explanation you could come up with for why cyborgs in the future would kidnap people from the past and make them their slaves. You couldn't have it like, oh, the cyborgs don't know how the technology works, or, oh, the cyborgs wanted to enslave humanity because of their evil nature or mistreatment or something. It's like, nope, we couldn't think of anything. Sorry.
Yeah.
And
then again, I suppose the cyborgs would probably be a little more... there are some things that cyborgs no doubt would probably be sucky at, namely like motor control or something like that. But then again, it could also just be that the cyborgs are working for something a little less advanced than...
It could be, but again, that's never brought up because, again, this movie was probably really rushed in production, so they didn't have time to think about it. It probably was, let's just finish this movie and get it in the video store. That's all they wanted, They just wanted to rush this out as a cash grab at like any single second. But what happens is Anne says a Bible quote as the runaway finishes it.
Oh, God, here we go.
Yep, there were more of the religious aspect, which, again, really feels tacked on. You could tell the director did not want to do this. We'll get more about that in a little while. But it definitely feels like something that they had to put in if they want to get this movie finished. And to be fair, they did finish it, but was it worth it?
Nope.
The narration returns as it just repeats things that we already said about Anne being a nun and having a crisis of faith. She reads through a scrapbook, including a girl who died of a drug overdose, with Anne feeling responsible because she was a drug dealer. The Mother Superior arrives as she talks about her faith with her, and when I first saw this, I had no idea what was going on. I thought for a second, like, did they edit this movie out of order? Which would not be out of place for this movie, let's be real. But it turns out that was supposed to be a flashback. There was no indication of this being a flashback or anything. It literally cuts from her on the train to cuts to her with a scrapbook in a church with a nun. And it's like, what is going on here?
It's at this point, I had just the mental realization, I'm getting theology lessons from a movie that's using dinosaur action figures as special effects. What is my
Yeah.
life for?
Exactly. And yeah, like I say, if the Catholic Church funded this movie, they did not return their investment. Let's put it that way. They did not get their money back on this movie. But what happens is they basically, the runaway mentions that the trackers will return to their place of origin and attack, meaning that they're going to go back to the house. Anne wants to go back and stop it while the runaway wants to hide. As they walk down the street, the runaway realizes that he wants to go and help her. Anne tries telling him that she wants to be alone, but the runaway replies with Bible quotes. So like I say, apparently the cyborgs kept Bibles around. This really does feel like a movie that should have Kirk Cameron in it show up at around this time, you know?
Oh boy. Yeah.
I guess they do fear the robot devil from Futurama then.
Oh god.
Nice. Oh god.
If only that were the case.
If only the robot devil was here. But what happens is we cut to Anne trying to use a payphone as the runaway tries to read a newspaper, but he's holding it upside down. I can see what they were trying to do with basically the characterization of this, that Anne is cynical about the nature of the world, while the runaway is merely just curious about everything. And I can see what they were trying to do with it, but it really doesn't show up, you know? It really is something that does not work. Especially, I think, because more than anything, it feels like it was trying to shoehorn in, you know? It was something that it doesn't feel natural. You get me?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Kind of feels like we're trying to do 4 movies at one point, at several points.
Oh, definitely. This feels like they had 5 scripts and they smashed it together into one. But the runaway then mentions that he wants to be a complete man, like the Bible says. We then cut to the forest where a man in a Hawaiian shirt is having a nature walk. And it's here where we gotta point out 2 interesting things. One, the man is holding a magazine that has a picture of Gorgo on the cover, which we previously discussed on the podcast, which is a much, much better movie than this. If you haven't seen Gorgo, go see Gorgo. It is a legitimately good British kaiju movie. But number 2, this man is played by Forrest J. Ackerman, who apparently was a very influential science fiction author of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. It's like, how did you get this guy to be in your movie? This guy apparently was a very well-respected author in his time. He was friends with guys like Ray Bradbury and Asimov and that. He apparently invented cosplay because he showed up to a science fiction convention held in the 1930s as a spaceman and actually was in character for a little bit. So, like I said, you got this great science fiction writer in this really, really garbage movie. It's like, did he put up funding for this or something? Guess he
got whoever he could find and just said, "Coming up."
Yep, exactly. But the man continues to read his magazine as we see a dinosaur lunge at him, which apparently seemingly kills him. We then cuts to the police station as the officers wonder why the attacks are happening and are busy making a plan. And basically is trying to talk to the runaway about where he comes from, as the runaway reacts with 3 things: Bible quotes, Earth is heaven, and that the cyborgs are our masters, which this could be an interesting concept in a good movie, that he is so brainwashed and he has to break his programming. That could legitimately be an interesting concept. But they do not do that with this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Not okay. Is he it's like, you have to question, is he brainwashed or is it just bad acting?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, very well.
Column A, little column B.
Yep.
A little bit A, a little bit of B. Yeah.
Yep. We then cut to 2 kids playing football before a dinosaur appears and roars at them. And we immediately then cut back to the police station as we don't know what happened to the children. So, was this movie gutsy enough to kill off kids? We do not know.
We will never know, sadly.
Nope. What happens next is a police car pulls up in front of the runaway and Anne, as we see the pair of them being arrested and put in the back of the squad car. And it's here, at this moment, we get the part that completely and utterly just broke me with this movie. A newspaper runs up with a cameraman, and you think like, oh, okay, this is going to be interesting. The cameraman is holding his TV camera, which is a camcorder with cardboard glued on the side.
Sure.
If you're they didn't even color the cardboard. They left it at brown. It's like, if you're at that point where you have colored, you couldn't even like use a Sharpie and color in the cardboard to match the rest of the camera. You are really low budget. You know, this thing didn't even have a budget for markers.
Yeah, that
Crazy.
is very bizarre.
But the reporter basically talks about the animal attacks, so we cut inside the warehouse to people trying to fend off the dinosaurs. The cameraman pans to the police officers who are busy trying to send in tactical officers to deal with it. And the tactical officers is one guy. But it's like we had the police officers as send in the tactical officers, and then it cuts to just one guy rounding a corner. So it makes it seem like they could only have the budget, the police only had one tactical officer in their whole squad. It's like unintentionally, you know, funny that way.
No, you see, there are several. It's just a case of Officer Joey where they all look the same.
Clever. I would count that if this movie did something like that, it would actually be legit clever. But for now, the officer just wanders around the warehouse before he sees the tail of one of the dinosaurs dragging on the ground. The officer comes across a pool of blood on the floor as we see the dinosaur's shadow is in the background. And during this sequence, we repeatedly cut back to the reporter and the cameraman trying to get shots for really no apparent reason. And then all of a sudden, we cut to the other officers, the runaway and Anne, entering the warehouse to see the severed arm of the tactical officer. The runaway tells Anne that this happens when the trackers catch their prey. The dinosaur appears from within the boxes, like literally bursting out of them, and begins attacking.
Yep,
Anne
just to remind you how cheap this movie is.
Yep. Anne throws her coat over the dinosaur's head as the runaway leaps at it with a knife, stabbing it to death. The dinosaur's collar beeps as the runaway tells the police officers to get down before it explodes. The police captain then gets a phone call saying that there are apparently more dinosaurs in the city. The runaway is trying to tell them that the dinosaurs are hunting for him and they will not stop until he is dead. But then all of a sudden, the police captain just has him arrested as Anne protests this. And it's here we gotta point out something else. So far, almost every single character in this movie, Anne included, is wearing a flannel shirt. This is like My Name is Earl, the movie, with the amount of flannel that is in it.
I wasn't sure if the costume designer, if they could afford one, had a fetish for flannel, or if there was just a sale at the local lumberjack store that day.
Could be a little bit of both.
Yep.
But what happens is we then cut to the runaway behind bars as an officer listens to the amount of attacks taking place. The runaway punches at the bar, so we cut to Fred and Anne outside in the car. She asks if she could set up a meeting with a gang, and we then cut to another part that definitely feels like it was shoehorned in because we cut to the runaway basically training in his cell, which is basically just a showcase for his martial arts skills. And apparently, fun fact,
it's a kung fu movie.
Yeah, now it is apparently. And also, fun fact, apparently Daniel Bernhardt actually uses scenes from this movie on his demo reel. It must have worked if he got in actually big budget franchise films after this, so something came out of this.
He is proud somehow.
Somehow.
Yep, somehow he is proud.
Yep. As we see him train, we get to see flashbacks to scenes earlier in the film for no apparent reason other than, hey, let's just kill time. The runaway then lies on his bed as he stares up at the ceiling. And then we have a random cutaway to just one of the spaceships flying in space, as if to say, oh, right, yeah, there's a spaceship in this movie. Don't forget the spaceship, even though it doesn't do anything. Can you tell we don't like this movie very much?
I've seen worse, but yeah, it definitely wasn't too engaging.
No. Sorry, Matt, you were saying?
We're so subtle about it. It's hard to tell.
I know.
Yeah.
But
it's artistic. And we also bought the footage already, so we're going to use it one way or another.
Yeah, it's very true. But we then cut to Anne and a group of men arriving to meet each other. Anne apologizes to one of the men about something, as she mentions that she needs their help against monsters in the hood, and that is an actual quote from the movie. Now, this looks like the last woman who should be saying the words monsters in the hood, okay?
This is how we do it in the hood, boys and girls.
If only this was a crossover with Leprechaun in the Hood. And
Leprechaun
Back to the Hood. Not the Hood, the Hood.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
Those
that's
exist.
a real movie. That is a real movie. Check it out if you haven't seen it. It's nuts. But back in this one, we then cut to a mountain scene as we see the blue POV of another cyborg. This cyborg is apparently the leader of the others, and the script calls him Master Cyborg, so I'll call him that. We then cut to what appears to be a parking garage, but is actually a police station. But what they do with the establishing shot, they show a parking garage. And when we cut to inside, it looks like the office of like the parking garage attendant. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Again, they only had one place to film, so
one, maybe two things to film. Yep. But a psychologist claims the runaway's story is completely crazy. The police captain mentions that he saw the dinosaurs as well before a group of federal agents somehow arrive. The FBI interrogate the runaway about the tracker and the collars, then question his anatomy if he's human or not. So apparently now, amongst all the other things we're ripping off, now we're going after X-Files. And I will say this is better than the last 2 seasons of X-Files. I'll give him that. That's another very low bar to clear, but somehow this movie cleared it.
Yep.
We then cut to the point of view shot of the Master Cyborg, and then we see the runaway having something removed from his body, which turns out to be a tracking device. The FBI agent and the runaway are busy arguing with each other, while a scientist takes the tracking device and basically brings it with her. But because she has it, the Master Cyborg breaks into her office. She tries to escape through the window, even though it's too small for her, but is caught by the cyborg, who basically breaks her neck and takes the device. The FBI agent continues to interrogate the runaway. Meanwhile, the Master Cyborg enters and he kills everybody in there, including the FBI agent. Now, the Master Cyborg is played by Robert Z'Dar, who did a lot of B movies. A metric ton of B movies this guy was in. He had a very distinctive enlarged face. I believe it was due to like a cherubism or something like that. It's an actual like genetic position where your chin looks enlarged. He had that, and what they do with his design, they actually try to make him look a little bit more robotic. They try to give him like a robot eye, like the Borg from Star Trek, and he kind of looks Borg-like in general, like with the helmet on and like the wires. They basically, I think, had more budget for this costume than the last guy's costume, and it's not bad. Let's say it this way. The Master Cyborg's outfit is not terrible. It's probably one of the more well thought out things about the movie, sorry to say.
Indeed.
Yep. But basically what happens is the Master Cyborg catches the runaway with a collar, then he begins to drag him away. One of the surviving officers bursts in and shoots at the Master Cyborg, who releases his grip on the runaway to attack him. And it's at this point I realized something, because throughout this whole sequence, it never occurred to me until this point. But when the Master Cyborg approached the officer, it hit me. Are they trying to rip off the Terminator? The part where the Terminator bursts into the police station and kills everyone? Because if they did it, they did a really bad job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
But what happens is the runaway fights with the Master Cyborg's dinosaur, who is a giant. There's a part where another editing error happens. The runaway is facing left, then a close-up of him is right, and then it's left again. And we get another Carnosaur shot, which is definitely from Carnosaur, because we could tell that it looks like it's on a different film stock than the rest of the movie. So yeah, that's real good quality right there if you couldn't even match the film stock. The runaway basically stabs the dinosaur with a metal pipe, which kills it and causes it to explode. He beats the Master Cyborg with the pipe before running off. We then cut to Anne basically telling the gangsters that they all have to work together to stop the dinosaurs, which is a plot that goes absolutely nowhere. This must have been something from the original cut of the movie, because this looks totally different from the rest of the film. You know, this feels like this was from the original director before he was fired for turning 45 minutes of talking. This feels like they took what they could of it and just shoved it in the movie, despite it not making sense anymore.
My favorite part about when she was speaking with the gang members is that they all just meet up in a circle around her when they first gathered together, and I was waiting for like them to just break out in song like it was Grease.
Oh God, That would have been better. If this movie was a musical, it would have been interesting.
Yeah, at this point they have added so many storylines and genres. It wouldn't be out of the box. They will add musicals.
A musical? No, definitely not. And one of the gang members asks where the dinosaur will be. The runaway basically bursts in and tells them that the dinosaurs go near water. We then cut to a group of them entering a dam while the runaway notices fresh tracks. An off-screen dinosaur basically roars as the gang members run off screen as they get to the truck. And it's here where we get to the one of two, count them, two, of the single greatest, most unintentionally hilarious parts about this movie. The dinosaur chase sequence.
Acting in the whole thing.
Best special effects in the whole thing. Because basically, it is trying so hard to rip off the iconic part where the T-Rex chases the Jeep in Jurassic Park. Only this is done on a budget, as Matt said, of basically 2 shoestrings and a handshake. So the dinosaur here looks like a toy. And the screams here are so hilariously fake that this had to be like take 50 and they were not caring. I think at one point you see Anne's actress actually break down and laughing at like it for a split second. Because this is just so ridiculous looking.
Yeah, here's an imitation. Go!
Run! Go! Exactly.
We're not making fun of it. This is actually how it sounds.
Yeah, it's not just us riffing on this thing. This actually legit happened.
No. See, that's not fair. You guys are doing way better than they did.
Oh, God. But basically what happens is they trap the dinosaur in a chain link fence as it continues to roar. We then cut to Anne as she makes a plan with the gangsters to get guns and other weapons. We then cut to Anne and the runaway meeting some guy named Conroy and another guy named Chadwick to get the illegal weapons. The only thing of note about this part, because again, this feels like it was from the earlier draft of the movie, is that when we see them driving, we see a theater playing Casablanca. And I saw that and I'm like, oh, hey, they're playing Casablanca. That's nice. I'd rather watch that instead of this. Oh, definitely. That things happen in that. There's story, there's better acting, there's better action in it. I mean, the ending is way better, too. But what happens is we then cut to their hideout where they're analyzing various weapons, as well as a bizarre comedy part where the runaway basically holds a flashlight in his face accidentally, which, again, is not commented on. None of the gang members even notice this. We get Anne basically giving him an, oh, you look on her face and basically showing him how to hold it the right way, which is, again, this feels like 2 movies mashed into one. Like, whatever the original director put in, it could not have been as bad as the final product we got. I'm sorry. Even if it was 45 minutes talking, we should have at least let him finish his vision. Maybe it would have been worse than this. I highly doubt it could have been. But we then cut to the group arriving at a dam as they put dynamite down with what appears to be a 20-minute timer. We then see the entire sequence from the beginning of the film played again in its entirety. The only difference is we get a very brief shot of Anne and the runaway talking. And after Fred is killed by the dinosaur, in which case you didn't know, Fred was the guy who got killed by the dinosaur in the intro. The gangsters kill one of the dinosaurs with what appears to be a spear attached to a chain. The runaway and Anne flee from a dinosaur as one of the gangsters stay behind to attack it with a knife but is then killed. The dinosaur is drawn to a ledge where, in a pretty interesting idea, the gangsters drop a giant light on it, which electrocutes the dinosaur and kills it. Which
really?
Okay.
I thought they just shot it right then and there, and it just fell down the hole.
There's one of them. They shoot out the light. The light lands on the dinosaur and it electrocutes it. Which not bad. That kill had a little bit of thought in it. But there's one more There's one more dinosaur left as the group basically turns a hall to see the master cyborg, and the runaway arrives and the two of them fight with each other. And basically, the Master Cyborg's fighting skills seem to be just stand there and get hit. Because
he is a cyborg, so... he is a cyborg, but yeah.
Yeah, true,
but... he took the term best defense is the best offense quite literal.
Yeah. He basically tried to pull a Luigi and tried to win without doing absolutely nothing. Or by doing absolutely nothing, rather. But basically what happens is, eventually the runaway knocks him out. The group then escapes just as the building explodes, which probably kills the remaining dinosaur within it. We then cut to a church as we get to see Anne taking her vows to be a nun.
Boy.
And it's here where I got to talk about this. I got to go on a little rant because the exterior of the church is an actual church. Probably was the one they got the funding from. But the inside of the church is one of, no, I am not kidding, the worst set design I have ever seen. It is clearly the warehouse. What it is basically the director said, let's put a couple of statues of Jesus and Mary across some benches, a window made out of what appears to be construction paper, and some candles. Yeah, that looks like a church. It is so bad looking.
Maybe back in like the 18 or 1700s, that probably would have flied. Nowadays, come on, people.
And this is a Catholic church too, and it's like, yeah, I live in a Catholic country, so I can say this. There's so many Catholic churches here with just blank gray walls. There's so many Catholic churches.
At least they have something there, right?
No, I'm saying in the movie, just makes like, but I'm saying like in this movie, like, oh yeah, it's a real authentic church. The black gray walls with nothing on them. The complete lack of any sort of organization. Yeah, that looks really good. But
okay.
What happened? I was joking. Basically, what it was, I was comparing this to it. Whatever. What
yeah,
happens then? We get one of the more ridiculous parts of the movie because for no reason, the Master Cyborg just bursts in through the ceiling. And as soon as it gets there, it blows up a statue of Jesus for no reason. No reason whatsoever.
Movie blowing up Jesus for no reason.
Yeah, it just raises its arm cannon and blows up Jesus. It knocks over a few of the pews as the priest and the nun run out. The runaway fights with the Master Cyborg as apparently the Master Cyborg now has learned to actually throw a punch or two. So I guess it learned from its programming. So maybe if the runaway can beat it up 50 more times, it can actually learn how to properly fight. Because again, this fight is basically runaway kicks the cyborg gets hit, it basically looks around for a second, then it punches the runaway. This happens for a good 2 minutes, but then what happens is after the cyborg blows up a statue of Mary, again for no reason, basically Anne throws the exploding collar to the runaway, who straps it around the Master Cyborg's neck. And we get another good continuity error because we get to see blood appear and disappear on the runaway's chest depending on what shot it is. Like at a close-up, there's blood on his chest. When it's a far shot, there isn't any. It's like, it's that level of bad, people. It is that level of bad. But
my favorite part during that fight was when our main character just casually takes off his shirt, pretending as if it was ripped off or blown off.
Guys, I'm an action guy. Did you know that? You know that yet?
Yep, I know karate. I'm muscular. Look at me. But what happens
Mr. Meeseeks, look at me.
If only he was here. But what happens is the Master Cyborg grabs the runaway, trying to take him with him, but the runaway basically elbows him in the face and runs away. And the Master Cyborg explodes, and it's here where something very surprising happens. The Master Cyborg basically catches on fire and runs. This is a real fire stunt. They actually lit a guy on fire for this movie. The guy basically, runs around, flails in his arms while he's on fire, but this is a real fire stunt. They didn't just superimpose CGI over him. So I'm going to be honest, whoever was the fire stunt for the Master Cyborg, they were the only person who cared in this movie because allowing yourself to be lit on fire for this
takes effort.
And hopefully they could afford the protective gel.
That too, because this movie might not have had that kind of budget.
But yeah, that is some absolute cojones for doing that.
Definitely. But what happens is we then get to the end of the movie, which is interesting because the movie was originally going to end with Anne vowing to continue fighting the cyborgs with the runaway, but the Catholic backers basically said no. They had to have her finish her vows as a nun, and she runs a crisis hotline with the runaway. The movie ends with basically the runaway answering the phone of a young girl who needs help in her life. And we get to see a scrapbook photo of the runaway as a counselor, but the photo they use is one from the final fight. It's like, who took that picture of him mid-karate stance, The
cyborg had a camera function installed.
True. Well, he has a camera eye, so it could have happened. But that is basically it for the entire movie. And yeah, Future War basically went direct to video. It made no money because why the hell would it? It's considered to be a very, very bad movie by mostly everyone. And I am very inclined to agree because I can handle bad movies. I can handle some really, really bad stuff like like Robot Monster or stuff like Incredibly Strange Creatures or stuff like let's see what else?
The Princess and the Dragon.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah. Things like that I can handle. But things like this is like this the people who made this were not having fun with it. Like a movie like Robot Monster, you could tell that they had no budget, but they gave it their all. A movie like The Incredibly Strange Creatures Who Stopped Living and Became Mixed Up Zombies. Yes, that is a real movie. You could tell that it just feels so wrong that it's fascinating. This movie, you really could just give it to the Asylum and they would make the exact same thing. Like 20 years later, this would be the exact same movie. This probably was like the birth of their type of film where they did not care. This was like a rush job to capitalize on because Terminator was popular and Jurassic Park was popular and get it into video stores and hopefully make a buck. They didn't, and this movie is mostly forgotten, if not for Red Letter Media and Mystery Science Theater. But now it is time to talk about actually good movies for a change, thank goodness. Because it's time for the question of the week, which is, what are your favorite action movies? And I have a couple that I could say, because one of my all-time favorites, of course, is Die Hard, which is an absolute one of the best action movies ever made. Probably one of the best movies ever made, period, to be honest. Because it really, I think what it was so different from everything that we got up to that point. Because you look at something like Commando, where Arnold is basically just gunning down these guys, and he's not getting a scratch on him. And the final fight with him and Bennett, Bennett is so scrawny and so a Millie Mouse guy. I ain't gonna shoot you in the eyes, Matrix. I'm gonna shoot you in the balls. And then he gets impaled with a pipe. Let off some steam, Bennett. It's not like that. Die Hard is more realistic. I think Die Hard opened up a level of realism, but with John McClane acting like an ordinary person rather than like a superhuman man. Unfortunately, Die Hard would not learn this because of the fifth Die Hard movie, but we don't talk about that one. Indeed. But yeah, the original Die Hard is definitely one that it is so good because it's a movie that really just revolutionized the industry as a whole. I mean, you got Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber. You have so many great characters in it. You have Mr. Nuggets. You have basically all the henchmen are good. You have Carl. You have all the great characters. You have Theo. You have Argyle. You have probably one of the funniest characters in any movie, Ellis. Hans, baby, I'm your guy.
Oh gosh,
classic Ellis. Yeah, but yeah, Die Hard is definitely one of my favorite action movies. My other choice for my favorite is going to be James Bond, but with a little pin in it, because mine is actually Bond from Connery until Bronson. Because, I don't know, Craig, for me, he's good. He's really, really good. It does not feel like James Bond to me. It feels like they saw Jason Bourne and were like, let's do that, rather than doing what James Bond is best known for. Apparently, the reason they did that is because Austin Powers stopped them from taking seriously. But to that I say, Spaceballs made fun of Star Wars, but yet we kept getting Star Wars stuff. So you could have just kept doing James Bond. I mean, Austin Powers is not as popular as he once was. So I feel like when they make a new Bond, I really wanted to go with the old style in my heart. But I know that's never going to happen. That we're not going to get the wacky henchman, the megalomaniacal villain, all that stuff. Which, granted, not all of them are good. Some of them have aged poorer than others. But as a whole, they're just fun. A lot of them, especially my favorite Bond is Moore. He is so much fun. I really, really like his tenure in particular because you could tell that he was just having a blast making these movies. But yeah, those are going to be my picks for my favorite action movies. Die Hard and the James Bond franchise from the beginning up until Die Another Day. So, Angron, what would your favorite action movie be?
Ooh, lordy.
Or action movies, rather.
Yeah, I do definitely have a few in mind. There's Expendables 3, which Sylvester Stallone, Antonio Banderas, freaking Harrison Ford, a lot of people absolutely made that film worth watching. It was fun. It was action-packed. There was also Rundown, which had The Rock in his early years, which that also helped. Also, the fact that it was all shot in Hawaii, and also the fact that he was in its element because of that, mad props. There is also the Avengers, namely Infinity War. I will die on the hill that is easily the best of the MCU movies, hands down. I'm sure it left a lot more questions than answers, but I'm sorry, that moment was peak. Bar none. Even compared to freaking Endgame. That is how devoted I am to that movie.
I feel like the MCU really should just hung up their hat after Endgame. It's like, okay, we're done, you know?
Maybe.
It's like they went out on top, but they did it and they kept like, it's like they didn't know when to end it, when to go out on a high note, you know? It's like, and now it feels like they're grasping at straws, especially now they're trying to bring like Doctor Doom played by Robert Downey Jr. It's like, how is that going to work? But sorry, go ahead, continue.
But I think for my action film, I'm 100% going to do Hot Fuzz. I'm sorry. Like,
classic.
Yeah, it's a frickin' parody. It's fun. It's got iconic moments for a reason. But yeah, if as part of the Ice Cream trilogy, I honestly have to give it to Simon Pegg here and Nick Frost. Like, they really did a great job with this movie. The action, the suspense, like there were a lot of serious moments, but they also had a lot of fun moments with this as well, which absolutely made this 100% worth it.
Oh, 100%, 150%. It's
Yeah.
definitely one of those movies
great
that
choice right there.
It's a parody, but it's also a really good example of its genre. It is such a good example of it, you know? It really, really is good, you know? It's probably one of the best action movies ever, just like action movies in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's both a parody and genuine in what it's trying to do, and I definitely am for that. So I'm going to pick Hot Fuzz. Next.
So, okay. Math, what would you say is your favorite action movie or action movies?
So we're counting superhero movies as action movies, so that's why I'm choosing this one. Some places count this as action, some don't. I do. This movie can be summarized with just one word. Presentation!
Megamind.
Nice.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call that 100% action, but it does have a lot of good action moments in it. I'll give it that.
That's why I said that some places classify it as action, some don't. There's a very big back and forth on that. I do because it's superhero, and it was before the big superhero wave that we got. This movie was so well thought out, and I'm glad to see that every year it got a bigger and bigger following because of how good it was. And it was just discarded by DreamWorks for so long, I say, as, we got the sequel.
You got the sequel and the freaking show.
Yeah.
Which are both so low budget and so badly made, they look like they are older than the original Megamind.
Well, that's what happens
actually, I'm going to change mine from Hot Fuzz to the bad guys, because even though it's not... Because even though it's, an animated sort of
movie,
deal...
I think, but...
Yeah, more of a... Okay, never mind. I'll stick with Hot Fuzz. My bad.
It's all good.
Yep.
Yeah, the OG Megamind was just really ahead of its time, and it was very well done, and it had some of the most iconic scenes in all of, I would say, superhero movies.
Yep.
Like I said, that presentation scene is still probably one of the best introduction into climax battle scenes that's ever happened.
Indeed.
You know it. And the other thing, too, is that, like I say, I like Despicable Me. Don't get me wrong, Despicable Me is cute. Despicable Me is a funny franchise. If you gave me the choice between having, Despicable Me being a $1 billion franchise or Megamind being a $1 billion franchise, I probably would have chosen Megamind 10 times out of 10.
Nowadays, however, we got what we did with Megamind, so I'm safely gonna have to say Despicable Me. Sorry.
And so the monkey's
sorry.
paw curls.
Yep.
Yep.
Very
Also, there
true.
will be no bell bottoms if the other happened.
True. That
Indeed,
she could have appeared in Megamind. You never know.
Who knows?
That's true.
Could have been an alternate universe where we did an episode on the fourth or fifth Megamind movie with her.
Oh God! Let's not go that far. Let's leave a little bit of imagination on that front.
Yeah. So, Shark, what would your favorite action movies be?
Well, not too far from Matt, because it's also an animated superhero movie, and that's The Incredibles.
Oh, that's
right.
Yes. Right. Oh
Great
man, I could
choice
have
right
definitely
there.
said Incredibles, but I definitely wanted to give mention to Hot Fuzz.
You sly dog, you got monologuing. But
Yeah.
because...
Like before Megamind, we got Incredibles. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Still the best Fantastic Four movie.
Yep, and the sequel is definitely 100% worth watching as well.
It's got its moments.
Yeah, the original is a classic for a reason. It's well remembered because it's not just your typical super strong guy defeats the villain, because there's a lot going to it. There's a lot going with the whole characters and motivations of the villain.
Oh man. There's also the Mr. Skipperoo short that they did, and had freaking Frozone and Mr. Incredible reacting to that short.
That was hilarious. It was basically a parody of all the bad things of really cheap TV animation.
From like Boomerang or
the cheap Marvel cartoons too from the time.
Oh man, it also had. There's also a little thing in the Incredibles DVD collection where it's like the AVL doing a recording of superheroes like Universal Man, Hypershock, and a bunch of other people. It's really great. You should definitely check it out.
Yeah. One thing I just want to mention about that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, another thing is, it might be advertised like the typical family Pixar movie, but it has some very mature stuff in there.
Oh yeah,
heck yeah,
not
absolutely.
just with the themes, but there is a kill count in this movie. There is.
Absolutely. Also, hello kids. This is Thunderhead. I wasn't the brightest bulb. Thunderhead gets me reeling every fucking time. Not as much as Universal Man, but good lordy.
Yeah. I also feel that it's kind of a shame they killed him off, because I feel like Gamma Jack would have been a really fascinating villain. Like, what happens when a superhero thinks they're superior than people? And, wants to use it for evil rather than good,
Indeed.
Definitely would have been interesting. I said, but no, that is a fantastic choice right there. That is a really, really good choice.
Mm-hmm.
So, good times.
Yep. So, Jordan, what would your pick be for your favorite action movie?
I grew up a little bit loud with the Marvel and DC. I love the Fantastic Four ones, like the original with Johnny Storm, like they came out with the first time, and the second one. Those are the ones I like the most. The reboot one, I will never talk about it.
Yeah,
I can see why.
No.
I mean, I like the Doctor Doom design it did in that one, but otherwise, Honestly, that Johnny Storm should have gotten the treatment he did in Deadpool 3. I will not say what.
We don't spoil that one here, folks. But I never saw the new remaster of the Fantastic Four, but I saw the cover. I'm like, what is this horseshit garbage?
Wait
I don't
a minute.
need to see this.
Are you gonna mention Deadpool on here?
No.
Oh, that's a missed opportunity.
I would, because the first two I love to death, but the third one, I am no rat, I am no snitch. I will not say a word until you all see it for yourselves. So I'm going to picks are going to be the Fantastic Four franchise, except for the one that came out in 2014. Never talk about that one, because that goes into the disappointment pile of garbage.
We got Deadpool right! Eventually!
It took him too long.
Long. Yeah, I probably should have picked Deadpool, but
That's another good choice,
Yeah. But yeah, Deadpool has been very much consistent throughout its entire trilogy. But yeah, I absolutely agree that in spite of their shortcomings, the Fantastic Four was definitely an entertaining one.
Yeah, the first two were just fantastic. Then I heard like they're gonna do another one. I'm like, wait a minute, they're doing another one. I find out
Yeah, they're
it's a
doing a Disney Plus
first
show.
one, and I'm like looking at it, I'm like, what is this? What am I looking at here? I didn't even watch it because I look how it stupidly looked. I'm like, okay, I don't need to touch this. I just threw it in the pile of this disappointment pile for me. So the first two Fantastic Four movies are my favorite.
Yeah. They're also coming out with a Disney Plus show that kind of looks like it's going to be a little bit of a half WandaVision, half freaking Doom Patrol, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, I can kind of see that happening. But no, like I say, the Deadpool movies are really, really fantastic too. That's another really great choice. So, Evie, what would be your pick for your favorite disaster movie?
I have to Pikachu.
Yeah,
it's like only action like the first last film.
No, that's a good pick because it is a really fun one.
Yep, absolutely.
I wanted to finish the first game so I can get onto the sequel. I still haven't done that.
So,
yeah,
I
that's
think,
cool.
Yeah,
but
I definitely think it could
work
out.
Don't know how to do 3DS emulation now.
There are some things that can definitely help with that. I think Shark has a 3DS emulator that I can send your way.
Okay,
But
yeah, no, it is kinda dead nowadays.
Yeah, let's yeah.
Yeah, I do need one so I can keep playing Pikachu one so I can just rewind.
But anyway, yeah, Detective Pikachu is definitely a very good pick right there. So, let's see here. Python, what would you pick for your favorite action film?
Movie.
Yep.
God, there's so many to pick. I suppose off the top of my head, Atlantis: The Lost Empire.
That's
that
fair.
was a good choice.
I thought for a good second you were gonna say Atlantis Square Panthers, and I was gonna be really confused.
Yeah, that would be favorite musical. That wouldn't be favorite action movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think what they were really going for in the movie was like really cool with like the whole like
steampunk
really
vibes.
Early 20th century aesthetic and like all the technology like meets ancient technology that's super like I don't know. I like that whole steampunk old aesthetic.
Yeah. I could definitely see that.
Yeah, no, that's a movie that definitely deserved way better than it got because you could tell they really were trying their all to make it so unique and so cool with the Atlantean vehicles and that, and it really is a good time.
I like the idea, the fact that despite them being sold, we already did a Greek thing, so no Greek for this shit. They decided to go full on Malaysian, and it honestly worked so much. Oh man, yeah, great pick.
It definitely does. That is a fantastic pick right there.
Yep.
So now it is time for the patent pending Dragoness Scale.
This will probably be the shortest and lowest one in our podcast.
Oh yes, this is going to be
heck yeah.
Very interesting. Yep, very, very interesting. I will go first, and if we can't count the reused Carnosaur footage, which we can't, we will get to Carnosaur eventually, probably for next year's Jurassic July, so basically stay tuned for that. But for this movie, I'm going to give them a 2 out of 10. The reason I don't get a 1 is because I give them credit where credit is due. Some of the animatronics didn't look too bad for the incredibly low budget they had.
Yep.
I think if they had stuck with like the more animatronic or puppet ones and not the literal toys, they would have gotten a 5 out of 10. They really would have. I really don't like giving scores this low, to be honest. I try to be more on the positive side, but I'm sorry. These suck. This is pathetic. This is like you could tell that this movie did not have a budget for dinosaurs to be in it.
This is like early 1900s Q the Winged Serpent.
Q the Winged Serpent is way better than this. Are you kidding me? If they could afford stop motion.
The 80s one, the original one.
The 40s one, yes. This is, I dare say that this is almost as bad as the original Winged Serpent movie from 1946. You are right there, because this, woof. Yeah, no, this is getting a low score for a reason, and I think everyone's going to agree with me on this one this week, so, Angron?
I'm gonna be a little more generous and give it like, I don't know, a 4 out of 10. Like, the designs weren't too bad, and for what they did, it certainly could have been worse, but yeah, there's nothing really positive to say about them, other than at least they look like dinosaurs, and the explosion that they do certainly helped a little bit. But yeah, I might honestly just find a middle ground and give them a 3 out of 10. They definitely needed to add a freaking budget to this to actually make it, better.
Yeah, no, I definitely think we're all going to be in agreement this week. So, Math?
Hey, Billy, bring your dinosaur action figures. Let's make a movie.
Hey, wait a minute. They could have called this movie Billy and the Clonosaurus.
Oh God.
That would have been more fun.
Hey, wait, what was that thing? It's Hey Billy.
Get your action
Billy,
figures.
bring your dinosaur action figures. Let's make a movie.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. But yeah, what's your score?
This was so insulting. I'm giving this a 0.
Damn, boy!
Wow.
Hey,
can we give zeros?
First 0.
This
is 0 out of 10. Wow.
Damn.
I never thought anything would. I never thought anything on this podcast would get a 0. Wow.
Neither did I was insulted by how cheap this was, and they were trying to pass this off as anything. The sound effects were terrible. They were literally action figures and inflatable pool toys. I have never been so insulted to see a dinosaur.
Oh yeah, and let's not forget the reuse scenes from an actual movie, Carnotaurus.
Sure.
Yeah. But that's why it would be a 1 because there's something there, but they were just so goddamn terrible that I had to go with 0.
Congratulations, folks! You heard it here. This is our first 0 out of 10 on the podcast. I hope we never do this again.
We will.
History in the making.
I highly doubt we will get another 0 out of 10 because this is probably the lowest budget thing we are covering. But yeah, wow. Shark, I don't know how you're going to top 0 out of 10 unless we go with negative numbers, and we're not doing that.
Let's talk about that bridge. Let's talk about that bridge. Your lord.
Numbers. No, 0 is as low as we can go, okay?
Yeah.
This
I will be tempted to go 0 too, but there is one reason I'm going to give them a point. A reason I'm going to give them a 1 out of 10.
Okay.
And that is the car scene chase.
Yeah, that's
Poor
so
dinosaurs here and acting. It's probably the hardest I laughed in a long time. So solely based on that scene, I'm gonna give them 1 point and 1 point only. So 1 out of 10.
1 out of 10. Hey.
So Jordan, what would you give these dinosaurs in this movie?
Who?
Okay, we'll come back later. Evie, what would you give these dinosaurs from this movie?
I don't have a picture, but I'm envisioning in my head, and it's shit.
Yeah, whatever you envision.
Whatever you envision. I'm envisioning a bath toy.
Yes, envision that. Yep. That's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head there. And last but not least is our guest, Python. What would you rank the dinosaurs in this movie?
Bad. I didn't watch it through the link. I kind of remember it from years ago, but like a really long time ago.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting.
But like, oh god, it was so bad.
Score.
So, what score would you give him?
I'm giving it 0.
Wow, we got 3 zeros. We got 3 zeros because Jordan gave it a 0 too. This is the first and last time on this podcast we are going to get this low of a score. Next,
get the Millie narrator. It's a new
record. Exactly.
Oh god, here it is. Here it is, Jordan.
Record.
Oh gosh.
Yes. Oh yes. But
that's about as shit as I thought it'd be.
This movie was definitely a unique one. If you have any questions, or if you want to send us suggestions on how you would have improved this movie in any way,
that would honestly be a good thing.
The only way to improve this was just not make it.
True,
Yes.
true. Yeah, okay. So, okay, then send in your emails if you have any pictures of toy dinosaurs that would look better than these, then. You can email us at firydiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/firydiscourse. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ludmillanon, and subscribe to the playlist there and check out new videos. Next week, we'll be discussing the 2023 My Little Pony Make Your Mark episode, The Isle of Scaly. This is the episode where Spike returns, so that will definitely be very interesting to see. And whatever it is, it can't be as bad as this. Whatever
there's always an opportunity that it will.
There's a non-zero chance. There is a non-zero chance.
There's a non-zero chance this could be as bad as Future War, but I highly doubt it. But that's going to be it for this week. Thank you guys all for listening, and until next time, take care.
Yep, later.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Adios. See you all next week.